Welcome to the Aguilar Conversations, a global perspective. I'm Tony Aguilar. As artificial intelligence evolves at lightning speed, its impact on the workforce has become a topic of growing concern and conversations. How will AI transform the future of work? What are the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead for workers? AI and the workforce. Next. Joining me today is Dara Dotson, CEO of Dara Dotson Incorporated and the founder of the Global Workforce Resilience Advisory Board. Dara, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Tony.
As you know, this is a big topic for a lot of people. And one of the things that has really grabbed my attention is in watching the World Economic Forum last week coming out of Davos, Benioff had made this statement, the CEO of Salesforce made the statement that this is the last generation of CEOs who will be managing a humans only workforce. Do you agree with that? And if you do, what's the implications of that?
So I do agree, but with the caveat that I think that some CEOs are already doing the hybrid of managing AI and human workforce. I don't know how we can ensure workers to be reskilled and prepared for a hybrid workforce, not just the workers, but the leadership as well, where to invest their time so that everybody is getting trained adequately and not being replaced right away.
It does seem to me there's a certain reality there in its comment that if the workforce is now going to be hybrid, then the question has to be that there's going to be less humans working. Unless you're talking about expanding the workforce, it seems to me that what he's talking about is a replacement of workers. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I think a replacement and then also the retraining of those that are going to be operating the AI, operating the robotics. So it's both. But yeah, I think we talked recently that I think that there is going to be widespread job displacement across major sectors in 2025.
From your perspective, then what are the sectors that would be most at risk from the evolution of AI?
So definitely manufacturing, logistics, and retail, they're already being affected, you know, in the Rust Belt in the Southeast, manufacturing, logistics, uh, sectors are already seeing widespread displacement. In the bigger metropolitan hubs, retail is seeing bigger displacement already. They're going to be, in essence, for the board, a template for how to move forward with other sectors that are coming up and likely to have a high impact, which is healthcare and finance. Healthcare will actually end up having a plus human jobs at the end, but it is going to require quite a bit of reskilling for those people. But at least with finance and healthcare, we have a little more time.
You are the founder of what is known as the Global Workforce Resilience Advisory Board. Now, since this is the fourth industrial revolution, and there have been other attempts in the past to mitigate the effects of technology, what makes what you're trying to do different and that will lead to greater success than other efforts have had in the past?
So I think for all of the three previous ones, the industrial revolutions happened over decades, giving workers and employers time to adapt. Um, AI is automating role within years and in some cases months. I think we're going to see a jump that I cannot even explain to you between 24 and 25, 2024 and 2025. Now, something that I do think that we are doing differently is trying to create these programs before there is widespread displacement and, either with the reskilling and then trying to get policy to get WIOA, which, as you know, is only approved through April, to include some sort of AI safeguards. If your company is going to roll out automation, AI, and robotics, you need to also be investing a certain amount into reskilling your workers.
There's a lot of talk about Stargate right now, which was rolled out by the new administration in January. But the reality is, Stargate was in the planning under the Biden administration since 2022. And what the Biden administration did was make sure they put certain restrictions on the advancement of AI. The new administration has taken away those restrictions. So, what do you think is the consequence of unrestrained AI in this present environment?
Well, from a workforce perspective alone, there if there's no regulations for Stargate and all of these AI rollouts, that's going to leave room for, Fortune 500 companies to roll out these programs much faster and without any requirement to protect the workers. Now, also, the whole ethical part of AI, that if that's my second biggest concern, because if we're not regulating AI, that there are people that benefit AI from a financial perspective making decisions, you have to question if ethics are going to be left out at some point.
So, then how does the board that you're trying to build now, the Global Workforce Resilience Advisory Board, seek to combat that? I mean, how are you going to organize that so that it can be a strong force that goes against unmitigated AI?
So we do have a policy innovations group that I'm still building out the members for. We do have two tentative members of the House that are willing to join us. One member of the Senate representing both aisles, both sides of the aisle, and then two senators that are willing to review and correspond with us afterwards when we share the information from what we've done. So I think that getting them involved is going to help us have a better chance of actually seeing something come to fruition in the between now and March 31st. I think we just really need to figure out what our basic suggestions are going to be for policy, which would number one be including AI regulations in the WIO update.
Where do labor unions fit in this? Under the last 4 years, labor unions have gained a little bit more of their power that they lost, but we are in a different political environment right now. So, where do you see labor unions fitting into this process?
Well, they definitely have a seat at the table, and hopefully a few. Part of what sparked me founding this board was the dock workers strike back in September. Um, I saw the power that they had, and then also I think it shined a light on positions that we did not think would be affected by AI, automation, or robotics even 5 years ago. Most people just thought it was going to be entry level positions. We do not currently have a labor representative on the board, and that is my highest priority for February.
It does seem to me because labor, even at Davos, was looking to have a seat at the table. And it would seem to me that they would be kind of an obvious um, organization or a sector that wants to be involved in a conversation like this. Let me ask you this, because many people have thought that one of the mitigating factors against AI and it becoming all disruptive is the fact that humans, they have human emotions, human intelligence that can deal with various things. But John McCarthy, who was considered the godfather of AI, said many, many years ago that machines could eventually take on the personality of human beings. Now, there were people who disagreed with that, and quite frankly, he was not sure that that would be a good thing to try to create AI to have human emotions. But if that's the case, then it seems to me that a lot of industries that think they are protected because of that would also be at risk. Would you agree with that? And how do you protect against that?
Well, the first part of your question, I do agree that it's happening. It's likely to happen. I just saw on I wish I could remember who was the company behind the robots, but they have humanoid robots in a pilot program doing senior care. And the number one issue that came out of that was that they were connecting too quickly with each other, that they were forming bonds too quickly. So I don't know what that says, Tony. I just think that if anything, it says we need to slow some things down and figure out what a little bit of the longer term implications of these things are without we don't have anything to judge them against. So it's hard to say what could happen.
Now, given the fact you come out of the workforce development world, do you think organizations that deal with workforce are really taking this seriously enough? And are they looking to prepare for what is coming? I mean, let's be realistic. AI is here, and it's not a genie that's going to be put back in the bottle. But are workforce organizations taking this aspect seriously enough to begin to prepare for the future?
Well, I don't want to be uh, over generalize the workforce development community. I do think, though, that many members of the community are so focused, understandably so, on WIOA and getting their funding, right? Because how can they operate without their funding? However, I think things are siloed into that. And like both things need to be true, right? They need to be worried about how they're going to fund May, but they also need to be taking more action to to mitigate AI automation and robotics impact on job displacement. I did speak to a leader in workforce in the Midwest last week, and he'd said he'd considered actually adding an innovations in AI sector to his board, but he really felt like that was more of a marketing issue than a actual issue, as we don't know what the actual job titles would be when that is not true. Like we across manufacturing, logistics, and retail, we're well aware of what those positions are, and people are already working in them. So I think there's a miss there, and I don't know what percentage he represents on that side of things, but the need is there for to push it forward because, like with Stargate, the people pushing AI and robotics and automation, they're not waiting. They just got the go ahead to go as fast as they want, basically. And if we're we're still not making plans and solutions for how to mitigate that, the ones from the previous year, by the time many of these organizations get on board, they're going to be trying to solve yesterday's solution for today, and that's no longer going to even be applicable.
Let me follow up on that because if someone is saying that that's more of a marketing, I mean, the stats are out there and the projections are out there. There are some projecting that 40% of the workforce in various sectors will be replaced with automation, AI by 2040 to 2050. So those are projections that are out there. And I guess the question is, why do you think there is? I know that the issue of WIOA is real, where to get your funding and the like, but it is a real issue because WIOA will not save organizations. What will happen is that if they're not dealing with what everyone knows is coming within the next 5, 10 years, I mean, even Stargate is looking at 500 billion years by $500 billion rather by 2029 to deal with the issue of AI. So this is coming. This is here. So I guess how do people legitimize that particular sentiment that this is just marketing?
Tony, that's the $1 million question. I reached out to him after the rollout of or the announcement of the rollout of Stargate, and said, I hope that this is going to be enough for you to get your board on with you for adding AI as a priority. And I got the thumbs up. So I think that at least he realizes that maybe it's a little more of a serious now issue. Really, it's a yesterday issue, right? Like we know from workforce how long it takes to put together a program, roll it out, see what works, see what doesn't work. We only have a maybe this year and 2026 before we really start seeing widespread um, adoption across industries in 2027. There's many projections that show that that's when we're really going to start seeing a difference. I forget the percentage of retailers that plan to have self-check only by 2027. So think of all the cashiers. That is cashiers alone is a huge group of individuals sector wide that are going to need to be reskilled. And we need to be thinking about that now because 2027 is around the corner.
If you were talking to workers, I mean, there's one thing to talk to the workforce development sector in of itself, but what would you be saying to potential workers as well as current workers, given what you know is coming down the pike? What should they be doing?
Well, first thing is they have to bite the bullet and start experimenting with AI themselves. I think the sooner that someone is not afraid to utilize a tool, the easier it is for them to digest the information to learn how to use it to their benefit. Just familiarizing themselves with generative AI, right? Like that's been around for a couple years now, and it's much easier to use even today than it was a year ago. So I think that also focusing on their human centric skills, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and adaptability, that's always going to be in demand, and that's a sector wide skill set, as well as any kind of certificate or courses that they can obtain in digital literacy or any other kind of program that will help them stay relevant. I think the idea of going to a 4-year university and being done with school, that has is long gone now, right? Like lifelong learning is the only way that we're going to be able to stay relevant.
The battle is going to be not only in terms of a sector-based battle, but it's also going to be a geopolitical one. So as part of your goal is also to make sure that the United States not only has a policy towards this, but also to maintain a cutting edge as it pertains to this. We all know what happened earlier last week with uh, DeepSeek and what China was able to do with that. And now, whether or not that is accurate or not, we will eventually see. But the question is, will the United States remain a leader in something like AI, or will it forsake, let's say, various sectors simply to get a geopolitical advantage and not worry about various sectors and their workers?
So just to make sure, the question is, what which route do I think that our government is going to go?
Sure.
Yeah, so
Because a lot of it is going to be geopolitical.
right. So
And
there
looking at what China has done, and the United States is going to want to be number one in all of this. So their incentive for them is not necessarily the workforce, but simply to be number one.
correct. So yes, I think that there is going to be widespread job displacement sector wide. We're going to start seeing it now in 2025, and I don't see it slowing down until probably after Stargate has finished building what they need to build, right? Because every time they build these data centers, that enables companies to have the digital power to roll out these new programs that have automation AI that can replace these workers. So yes, I think it's very similar to the race to the moon, right? Everything else kind of goes by the sideway, and as long as we get there first, for many good reasons, right? Like how AI is being utilized and robotics in the military. I think there's a lot of reasons for us to, as a nation, to make sure that we're number one. But it's going to come at a cost, and that's really why I formed the board to try to mitigate some of that.
I don't want to stay all kind of gloom and doom in terms of AI, but what do you think will be some of the benefits and opportunities for the future workforce as a result of AI and what is known as the fourth industrial revolution?
So one benefit for anybody reskilling, they're going to really increase their, ability to secure a higher wage, a livable wage, better than livable wage, which many of the people being affected today are, frontline workers. And as you know, they're likely not making a living wage. So that is a benefit. I think learning new skills, staying relevant. So not just for now, that they'll be able to more likely to maintain employment until retirement. I When I think about, you know, older generations and how when we get older it's harder to learn new things, I think that they're a population that we really need to come up with ways to safeguard first. And I know that wasn't this question, but that's really brought that to mind. I think it also it, it could, depending on the skills that they get reskilled in, it could give them the opportunity to move to a different sector and have more jobs available to them, which in 2025, the amount of people applying for a job on Indeed or LinkedIn sometimes is 500 to 1,000 before they shut it down. And you could be a wonderful candidate, but you still are, going up against 100 to 500 people. So that's something we have to keep in mind. And I think something with the younger generations that have found success job hopping, I have to wonder if the mentality that some of our older generations have, where you go somewhere and you stay there, that some of that might come back to be beneficial again. I'm sure it'll be a mix of things, but I do see that as potentially something that we might see research. Because if these companies are going to choose to invest in reskilling in you, I would want you to stay with my company if I invested extra for you to be able to stay on. So hopefully, I like to see people be loyal to their company and their company be loyal to them. So if that is something that we can get out of this big change, I hope that that's part of the fourth industrial revolution.
Your initial meeting is going to be on March 31st of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And you're forming this board in order to combat what you are projecting to be the result of unrestrained artificial intelligence. So, what do you hope to come out of this March meeting in order to prepare for what you believe is coming?
Well, the most pressing issue is policy. So I really hope that, the members that we're gaining for our policy group are able to come up with some short wins. And really, I like to think small, many small wins for 2025, because the idea of rolling out an entire reskilling program and finding a partner and all of those things, that's not likely to for the program, even if we start developing it at the beginning of second quarter, the likelihood of it rolling out before third quarter is pretty unlikely. So we wouldn't know the results of that until 2026. So anything that we can do to consider a small win along the way. One of the partners that we've partnered with is MUA out of Rhode Island, and they are an emotional intelligence assessment company. They assess all your emotional readiness, and then they give you a report on how to utilize that for your job search tools, resumes, uh, cover letters, LinkedIn optimization. And then just yesterday, I partnered with another agency that has a lot of small certificates in product management, program management, various other ones. So I think if we're able to bring those in on from both of those companies, we'll be able to at least build a little bit of a starting point that we can use the as a training program that we could roll out close to immediately on the soft skills side of things. And as I learn more about what this company offers, we could probably roll out some of those as well, and then take our not too much time, but really either trying to create a reskilling program for logistics, retail, or manufacturing. And the way the board is setting up now, it seems logistics may be the one for us to focus on first.
In the minute we have left, how confident are you that the board is going to have influence in this new technology, where it goes, and its effect on the workforce?
Well, I'm confident that we're going to have an impact. I don't know when we'll see measurable impact, but I think the fact that members of Congress from both sides of the aisle are already ready to join us shows that they know the need is there. So hopefully we'll be able to see some wins this year, but I project that we probably won't see our bigger wins until 2026.
My guest today has been Dara Dotson, CEO of Dara Dotson Company and founder of the Global Workforce Resilience Advisory Board. Dara, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Tony.
And thank you for joining us. And join us again next week here on the Aguilar Conversations, A Global Perspective.